Good morning, everybody. So welcome to today's live feed. Today is April 25th, 2020. The topic today is death and what happens when we die. It is a conversation I get a lot from people in what I do. And I figured today is a great day for this topic since today marks the 3-year anniversary of my son's death. I'm doing better than I thought I would, but I think having a lot of distractions today always helps. So first, I'll talk about that. I'm sad. I'm trying to think of the words. Reliving some things from that day, from waking up and feeling like nothing's wrong to as soon as I get out of bed, knowing something is wrong. So, death, it's today's a hard day for me. So let's talk about death. So with everything that I tell you, as I said, as I'll probably always say, is I know what I know based upon what the spirits tell me. Obviously, I have not died, so I cannot 100% say this is completely the case for every person. However, the amount of spirits that I've spoken to, the amount of stories that I have listened to from the other side would tell me that, at least for majority of the people, what I'm about to say is, I almost did like a Princess Bride kind of comment, which would have been funny, but I stopped myself. I would say probably 90% that happens to everybody. Obviously, there are exceptions to the rules, and I will always mention that. Okay, so there's a couple things of how we die, and I might circle around a little bit depending on questions that get answered, but I'm going to start with the basic how we die. So unless it's an unexpected death, and when I say unexpected, truly like a car crash, random act of violence that's, wrong place, wrong time situation, then we tend to not have this happen, which 2 weeks before we die, our loved ones start to come around us. And that's why sometimes you'll see for people that are dying because of health issues, or they've been in the hospital for a long time, or nursing home for a long time, or just sick for a very long time, 2 weeks before they die, they'll start to say that, they hear people in the room, or, start talking about their loved one, mom, grandmom, somebody that's already passed away. And as humans, obviously, we tend to dismiss it, that, that they're not lucid, or, they're dreaming, or just, you're not sure what's happening. But what is actually happening is these loved ones will show up 2 weeks before our death day to help us let go of our physical body, because holding on to our physical body is something that is difficult to not want to do. It's hard to let go of our life, whether it's because of unfinished business for some, for others, it's who we're leaving behind, especially when we're talking about people that at a much younger age, so like, if I were to die instead of my son, obviously I'd have a hard time letting go, because I'd be worrying about my son and how's he going to handle this and what's going to happen. So we tend to hold on to our body. And if we're holding on to our body, we won't let go. So our family comes around to help us with that, to say that it's okay, you're not alone in this, you'll be fine. And for those that really don't have family on the other side that would do that, that's where and we'll get into this, where some people who take on the job to assist those that don't have family to help them let go of their physical form comes into play, as well as spirit guides, as well as family or friends that we've had in past lives, which is a whole other topic, conversation that we can talk about in the future. But, that's the start of the process, right? So once we let go of our physical body, we then stay around for usually about 2 weeks, because within 2 weeks we tend to have our funeral, and most people stay around for the funeral. There are exceptions to that. Some people will stay around for years because they know somebody they want to speak to is going to see someone like me, who's going to come see a medium. So they'll wait around for years before doing their transition, just to make sure that their loved one is fine until they can actually talk to somebody who can bridge the gap of what needs to be said to them. When they leave to do their transition, what happens is it's twofold. It's one for them and one for us, the living. So for them, when they leave, they're usually gone about 3 months of our time. And I say our time because spirit world moves super fast. Those with abilities will understand this when I say, when you're always in their world, the timelines in this world are wrong. For me, today marks 3 years that my son has been gone. However, because I'm in their world a lot, it feels like it's been 15 years for me, even though it hasn't been. So their world moves super, super, super fast. So they get to learn a lot of things within 3 months, because to them, you're talking like almost like 2 years, a year and a half, whatever. I can't really give you a definite timeline on that, because in the end, that timeline is something that I just would never be able to comprehend. I just know what it feels like for me. So anyway, so they go through the transition. When they cross over into heaven, and I'll talk about heaven and hell in a moment, but into heaven for their transition, the ones that go, and we'll talk about that in a minute. What ends up happening is they learn the rules. They learn the things that they can and cannot say to spiritual people like me who can listen to them. They're allowed to tell me everything that they want to tell me. They don't typically tell me about death, because death is something of knowledge that's hard for the human people to understand. If I were told, I'll go back to me, that my son was going to die on April 25th, 2017, before it happened, I would do everything in my power to stop that from happening. And yet by doing that, that could create a ripple effect that was not meant to be, right? So again, cause and effect, we know that's a real thing. So they're typically told not to tell us that kind of stuff. And if they do tell us, then they're just supposed to tell us if we can or cannot say anything to the person we're talking to. So they learn some rules. They also get to decide if they want to come back into a new life, which seems kind of selfish to people that are alive. And I have experienced maybe 2 people who immediately jumped into a new life and didn't wait around for their loved ones. But most spirits wait around for their loved ones to pass, so that way, one, they can still experience them in their new life form, but then also to be there when they die, to help them through letting go of their body. So there's quite a bit of different things that actually come into play with that. They also can decide if they want a job. Most of the spirits don't take a job right away, but they do get bored, because again, their time moves super fast. And it sounds silly to say that, you die and take a job. I get it, but it's more like volunteer work. It's something that you've always wanted to do. So for example, my son is helping other teenagers between the ages of 14 and 16 who were given either a bad batch of drugs or tricked into taking drugs that they didn't know they had, such as the case with my son, and helping them stay alive if that is what's meant to be. So if the universe feels that this child, this teenager should not pass at this point in time, he's there to help them. So, and we've all heard these stories where somebody should have died in a car crash, but, they didn't, and they wake up, they don't understand it, but yet they felt like there was a big hug around them, a big bubble that was keeping them safe. That is an example of somebody whose job was to keep that person safe. So there's many, 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 many jobs and volunteer work, whatever we want to call them. But usually what it ends up being is something that the person's passionate about, whether it's either how they died or just passionate about in life. So again, happiness, right? Because they have a lot of time on their hands on the other side. So then they can freely come and go as they want between heaven and our world. For those with spiritual abilities, it's that pinpoint of light that you'll see that's just like boop, in and out, right? So how I tell people that you know what's happening is, did the light seem like it came at you, or did it seem like it went away from you? Coming versus going, right? So yeah, there's this is a topic that's a lot of information. So I'm sorry if I talk fast. This is how they talk. So I'm going to talk. I tend to talk this way. So heaven and hell, right? So after they do their 3 months transition, they freely come and go as they please between our world and heaven, what we call heaven. When it comes to the spirit world, regardless of what religion you're from and beliefs that you have, in the end, it's all oneness, right? It's just different levels of degree of energy, from just like we have here on Earth. There's different levels of energy of people, between neutral to really positive to all the way to negative. Same thing on their side, vice versa. So when you're in and out of their world, you're able to utilize their energy to help save other people. And so depending on the job that they have, that's what they do. Another thing that they tend to do is travel, go see places they've never seen before that they always wanted to, go see Italy, go see, some war that might be going on, or, go see the first birth in 2020, whatever the person wants to do. They're free to do whatever they want, and they can do it almost within an instant, so because they're pure energy, they're pure form. So that's the typical experience of death, right? From a transition perspective, we go through these steps. Now, a lot of people who have a lot of things going on in their life, and they may be really terrible people in life. When they die, they see everything in an instant, past, present, future. I mean, we all do. But those that have a life that is extremely miserable, who maybe was abusive, maybe wasn't there for people, maybe even just made some really terrible mistakes in life, and they only hurt themselves and nobody else. In that instant of seeing everything past, present, and future and becoming part of the oneness, they can be different people. So I've met a lot of people who, when certain loved ones come through, including in my family, it's almost like, why are you here? Because when you were alive, you were a jerk. You were this person, you were that person, you were very abusive, you were very this, you were very that. However, that doesn't have to be them in the afterlife. Just like we are trying to accomplish in this life to be okay, to not let certain things bring us down, affect us, bother us. If we can't accomplish that in life, then in death, we absolutely have that opportunity to let go and be the person we want it to be, that we long to be happy, to be less hard on ourselves, to get rid of our guilts, our shames, our mistakes. And it's a conscious choice in that moment. So a lot of people who die that were terrible in life are now these most amazing people in the afterlife, and are so much more loving and protective and helpful than they ever could have been in life. And that's a great thing. It's something that we're trying to do as in our physical forms now. But yet, how do we do that when we're all stuck in our mind? It comes always back to that space of be here, be now, as a lot of times we hear nowadays, because that is the one thing that helped me when Morgan died 3 years ago. And it just took Dave saying to me, feel the sofa under your legs. Smell the air, breathe, be here, be now. And that is something I've always held on to since then, because it does help us in these moments, no matter what it is, whether it's death, whether it's our own self-judgment, whether it's our own thoughts about financial worry, whether it's our own thoughts about any kind of worry, especially in today's pandemic now. Everybody's worried about everything. When is it going to go back to normal? When can I go get my hair cut? When can I do this? When can I do this? This isn't affecting me, but it's affecting others. Be here, be now. So they our spirits, our loved ones, as soon as they die, they are nothing but here and now. They are never in the future. They're never in the past. They are always here. They are always now. And the only times I think they get the glimpse of the future or the past is when they're by us, trying to help us, and we're stuck in the future and the past. And as I say that, my son is shaking his head yes. So he's confirming from the other side that that's the experience, which is great. So when it comes to certain deaths, such as we've always heard, oh, they died peacefully in their sleep. Okay. They look like they died peacefully in their sleep. What actually occurred for most people when they're dying, 99% of them, is when we're dying, even if we're sleeping, we wake up and we know what's happening. And then for most, we go through whatever pain it is that we're having, and then we go into that peaceful state. And once we hit that peaceful state, it looks like we died in our sleep, which is great. But they woke up. Now you're probably thinking, well, what's the matter, right? What's the difference there? Well, the difference is if we don't wake up before death, we tend to get stuck. And we've all heard stories about stuck, right? Spirits that are stuck, suicides are stuck. Church will say, brick and mortar church, certain religions will say, if you didn't repent, you're stuck. If you, believe in this, you're stuck. It doesn't necessarily work that way. It can work that way if that's what you believe, and that's how you want to take it into the afterlife, which then causes you to not necessarily experience what you need to experience. There are some people that seem to be stuck because they're trying to help somebody else. Okay. So when we die, even peacefully in our sleep, we wake up, we understand, we know what's happening. When that doesn't happen, which can and does happen, it's a small little percentage, then you get stuck. You truly are stuck. And it's because what ends up happening is you wake up, or let's say you were in the middle of taking a bath and something happened and you died in the tub, okay, at 3:00 in the afternoon. Every day, when you get out of the tub, when you wake up, you are actually now in a constant loop of whatever it is that you were going to do. So if you wake up and you normally go make coffee, you're going to get up and you're going to make coffee. And to a spirit that's stuck, that is their reality. So it doesn't matter that they're not physically alive, because everything's energy. The coffee pot's energy. Our physical world is energy. And they can move it. They can change it. And that's why some things move around. That's why some things disappear, because spirits can take things, whether they're conscious they're doing it in our physical world or not. So when they're in that loop, it's that constant play of that moment every day. And so most times, the residual hauntings is that you smell coffee every day at 6 a.m. That is somebody stuck in their loop. And loop's just an easy way to say it. There is a way to get them unstuck, honestly, white light, which I teach a lot of people how to use and how to take control of that. And I only learned that helps them by helping somebody who had somebody that was stuck in the house that did not know that they had passed away. And as soon as I did that, it woke them up and they moved. They started to do their transition. They did what they had to do, even if it was like 60 years later. So we can get stuck in that loop. So that's one way. The other type of death is suicide. And that is also degrees of death as well. So we have accidental suicide, which seems kind of like, okay, what is that, right? So accidental suicide means a couple things. One, maybe the person did want to commit suicide, but then changed their mind at the last minute, and then it was too late. That could be from any source of taking your own life, whether it's cutting yourself, whether it's hanging yourself, whether it's taking pills, whether it's drinking yourself, combining different things. It doesn't matter. But if in a moment of weakness, they started that path and then wanted to get off of it and couldn't, that's an accidental suicide. Then there's ones that look like suicide, even though it wasn't, whether it was foul play or truly themselves. I mean, I'm sure you guys can visualize a few of those. And then there's true suicide, right? So somebody did purposely want to take their life. And they acted out, they went through it. What ends up happening to those? Because the other two, it's not really suicide. It's not true suicide. So they don't live with the same guilt as the others do. And it's our guilt that we have in life that if we take in the afterlife, that can create that stuck and that cycle that never ends and never wants to stop. So for the true suicides, what I've experienced was they're not stuck outside of their own psychological aspect that they don't feel they deserve to move through transition, to have a good afterlife, to have a happy afterlife, because they feel completely terrible about the way their loved ones are feeling because of their death. Most suicides really truly believe that their loved ones would be better off without them. There are exceptions, again, to everything, but most of them feel that way. And so when they feel that way and they justify that and they justify that action, in the moments they're doing it, they feel that's what was the best thing for their loved ones, not them, because they're already miserable. They're already sad. They're already dealing with something that they can't get out of dealing with. And they really feel that this is the only option that really would make their family better, is if they're not in it anymore. And then when they die and they see how much pain it inflicted upon the loved ones they were trying to save and trying to ensure that they're happy without them, backfired. And so now they have all this guilt, and we all know what guilt feels like, but now they took it into the afterlife. And so they become stuck in a way because they don't want to do the transition, as I said, because they feel guilty of moving forward. So they made this like weird pact in the afterlife that I'll move and do my transition and move forward if I can help this suicide do their transition and move forward. So they're trying to do a form of redemption within their own circle. And so as they're doing their own redemption in their own circle, they're stuck. They're not moving forward on their transition. They're not going to the afterlife. They're not living the life, the good life that they could actually have and love and care about. So sometimes I'm able to talk one of them out of it, that it's okay to move on, that it's, if you can't help somebody, give it a certain amount of time and then, move on, you did your best. So suicides, yes, get stuck, but not in the way that we were taught and trained that they get stuck. One of the other things that I get a lot of questions about is hell. What is hell? I have never, ever experienced anyone going to hell or has come from hell. I believe, and it hasn't been confirmed by anybody whatsoever, I'm even looking at all the spirits, and although they're just sitting there nodding their heads, they're not giving me that hard yes. And I think this is also an area where it's a little harder to, as a human form, as a physical form, to comprehend. But from what I understand, Earth, our existence, our physical form, the energy that we interact with every day, all day, is hell. Why would, and this is something that I've questioned and never got an answer from, so it's almost like a statement. And again, I'm getting head shakes from the spirits over there. Why would there be a hell when the spirits that are being tormented or, for actions that they shouldn't have done, which is their own guilt, their own everything that's going on, and depending on, what that action was, is whether or not, and well, I'll explain that in a second because I feel like I'm kind of skirting around the bush there, but I'm going to talk about, sins in a moment. But so let's just blanket it as sins. But what would be the biggest punishment for somebody who was sinned or who feels they don't deserve a good life, but to be still around their loved ones that are either happy or not happy, to go through that guilt and seeing them and not being a part of the physical world anymore. To me, that would be the worst hell. And in some ways, it's what is hell for me to see my son on the other side. So hell is the fact that it's here. Now, we've all heard of Dante's, layers of hell, and we've all heard about the Bible and hell and tormation and damnation and all this other stuff. But I believe there are parts of this world where there is a special level of an energy portal where if you get stuck in it, it's like hell, and in some ways is hell. And that might be where some really terrible things exist, but I've never experienced it, and I've never got the confirmation of it. It's one of those things where I'm not being told it's wrong, but I'm also not being told it's right, which tells me that it's something that I'm not to know or understand or learn 100% just yet. So it's no matter what belief systems you have, and hold on to those if that's what helps you. But if you ever question those belief systems, just be open to other information is all I want to say there. Rose asks if it's their own guilt that is the hell for the spirit. Yeah, in a lot of ways. If hell truly is earth, then they're making their own hell. And then you have, the spirits on the other side that are so negative, demon-like spirits, demons, and again, these are just terms of energy levels. I use the same language and terms so people understand what I'm talking about. But they're just levels of energy, all the way down to the worst level you can get, as well as God and, the highest level you can get, no matter, again, the religion. So why would, using the term the devil, not have his minions, his army on earth affecting people? Why would they be somewhere else? So again, all these little things, but I think it's like understanding how the universe was created. There's just some things I'm not supposed to understand right now, if at all ever. So, and I'm okay with that. I will share what I know and what I've experienced and just the confirmations and things I've heard from the other side. So yeah, just like humans, just in physical form, we create our own hell in a lot of ways. And it's hard to get out of that. And I'm no different. Again, today is one of the worst days for me. Do I need to feel like I do the way I do? As my son shakes his head, no, absolutely not. But I do, because I'm still in physical form. Okay, so that's hell. I feel like I lost my train of thought real quick. But that happens. And I didn't write anything down today, so that was a negative. So there's this beautiful afterworld, right? They can interact with us anytime that they want. So even though there is a heaven and they can go over there and stay over in heaven if they wanted to, most times they don't, because why would they? Their loved ones are here. They want to be a part of our big dates. They want to be a part of our lives. They want to have this interaction with us still, but they want to do it on a less painful perspective. But yet at the same time, we are still people, right? So that is the typical death situations. There's obviously some probably things I didn't talk about, but it's good to high overviews. The other part of a transition for the spirit is during that 3 months that they're doing what they're doing, unless of course, they're not doing it. And then they're just miserable or they're interacting. And I still will talk about sins. I haven't gotten there yet, but during that 3 months, it's also to help us in the physical form, because when somebody dies, even if it's a natural death, even if it's within the natural order, it is extremely difficult for us as people to let go. We're sad, especially when it's somebody that we just love, or somebody that's out of the natural timeline, such as a child, such as a sibling, what ends up happening is over that course of time, we feel them less, we smell them less, because their scent is on their clothes, in their room, in the environment. And as the smell dissipates, and as their energy of being a physical being in our worlds starts to dissipate, we start to let go and we start to process, for the most part, there are exceptions, of this person's physical tie to this world. And so, whatever length of time, most time for natural situations, it is about 3 months, with moments of time triggering those deaths, the sadness, the situations, birthdays, holidays, things like that. But the initial grieving process of those 3 months is the hardest point and curve for us. And as everything diminishes their existence within our physical world, it gets a little easier. You can breathe a little bit more. You start to get back into day-to-day life. You start to just process different things. For somebody who died outside the normal timeline, that's harder, and it could take longer than 3 months. And so what tends to happen is that loved one will still go through their transition, but if they come back and they see that their loved one is still suffering tremendously, they back off. They won't put signs out there that they're there. Maybe once in a while, but not as often as we would want it to be. They won't let us smell them again, sense them again, because it's too painful. So they back off. They're around. You're not feeling them. You're not sensing them. You don't know that they're there. And the average person does do it. We're all born with this ability. That high intuition is an ability on those channels I was talking about in last week's video. So we can still smell them, experience them, and get those signs that everybody talks about, right? But unfortunately for people with abilities, we don't get that. We don't get that luxury. We don't get that luxury of not experiencing them for so long, because during that 3 months, you're seeking them out. You want to know where they're at. You miss them. You want them. And then they come into your life and it's like, oh, there you are. Great. This is awesome. And then they leave again. And why did they leave? Go do something. Whether it's go see something, go be with another person, even do these jobs that they have. They can't be with us 24/7. They can leave a remnant of energy with us and spread their energy out to multiple people, but they don't always typically be in one space for their entire existence in the afterworld. So there's a lot of longing in missing them. And so they try and ease that for us through the 3-month transition process, so that way we can move forward within our existence in our day-to-day life. Sins. Let's talk about sins for a moment. I get this question a lot because we're all told that, the 10 commandments, and I'm only going to talk about Christianity because I'm not knowledgeable on any other religion except for little high overviews. But what I know about the other religion is that whoever their God is, or their top, a source of prayer, is the same. God, Buddha, all of it, the same. Okay. So with that, sins. We all have them within all of our religions. Don't do this, don't do that. You should do this. You should ask for forgiveness for that. Da, 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 all these things. In the end, when it comes to physical form, a sin is something that you have done that has hurt somebody else and has hurt you. And until you can ask for forgiveness, which is very easy to do for a lot of people and hard for some, which if they do it, great. But the hardest part about all of that is that you have to forgive yourself. And I know, even for myself, it is hard to forgive myself for Morgan. Even though I did everything in my power to protect him, to love him. I knew I was going to cry. I warned you guys. But I can't forgive myself. So if we apply that to some of these other sins, murder especially, which from a spiritual world, I was told murder is the only true sin. I don't agree with it. I know that's my physical form that does not agree with that. But as we know, even with murder, if we ask for forgiveness and we forgive ourselves, you're free of that sin as well, which is just part of me that I have to continue to work on as a physical form. But sin is truly how you feel and how you're not forgiving yourself. So if you feel bad about something you've done, even if it didn't affect anybody else but yourself, then why would you not think that's sinful for yourself to be stuck in that? So sin is a word we like to throw around, and for some people it's something to hold on to for moral values, and that's great, and that's what what should be utilized if it's for yourself. But don't push it on other people, because we're already tormenting ourselves in a lot of ways. Because I know as I say this, those that know me will say, you did everything for Morgan, and he knows it. But yet, that's not how I feel. And it's the internal feels that we have that we take into our afterlife that either we grow from or we still don't. And if we still don't, then we're in our own little hells as well. And I would love for the afterlife to just be nothing but fun. And I know it will be, but at the same time, it's painful in this world. So death, we're afraid of it. A lot of us are afraid of it. A lot of us, it's because we don't understand it. It's because of things that we've done in our life here and worried about judgment. And that's another part of death I'll talk about real quick, is judgment. Because it goes along with sins. But it's not supposed to be a scary conversation. It's not supposed to be a hard conversation. It's not supposed to be the end. It's just a different way of living. Sorry. As I said that, both my son and my niece came up and hugged me, so it made it hard. Beautiful, but hard. So anyway, judgment. For some of us, when we're dying, that fear of judgment over how we treated people, maybe actions we've done, will cause us to hold on to our body longer than we should. And that's why sometimes you'll know a loved one, who's just, let's just say at an age that they should be going sometime soon. And they may or may not have a ton of health problems, but yet every time you think you're going to get that call, next thing you know, they're fine and they're holding on for months, maybe even years before they finally go. Most of the time when I experience somebody who has a loved one like that, it is because of the person's fear of being judged. Whether they feel they should be judged or not by others, again, our own internal hell is what stops us from letting go of this world, as well as how we are in the afterlife. So usually with those people, they don't want to let go until they know that so-and-so isn't mad at them, or that they're not going to be judged by their God, their angels, their way of existence in the afterlife because of some action that they did or performed or said. Honestly, if somebody's walking around saying all the time they hate a certain amount of people, then why would they think when they die that they're not going to be judged for that, especially in death, when we start to really think about our physical form and things that we should or should not have been. So they will hold on. And I've learned that the longer you can hold on to your body for as long as you want to before it's a complete disaster and they have to let you go. They have to do something to stop it. So when you see that, in your loved one, just whisper to them that it's okay to let go, that only you can judge yourself in that moment. Ask for forgiveness and forgive yourself, which is very hard to do. And if that's one thing that people could take away about death from today, is that's what we should be trying to practice. It is hard. I'm still working on it, and I probably will until the day that I die. But each time I think about it, helps chip away a little bit more, so that way eventually it'll work. Because sometimes some things just take practice. Letting go. Thanks, John. John says they're not the only ones hugging me today, so I appreciate that. Yeah. So death. Past lives we'll talk about in another session, or jumping into a new life, that'll go with the past life and different topic. It's just too much to talk about, and we'll definitely lose a lot of information if I shorten it down in the short time that we have. So that'll be a different topic. Next week, I'm going to talk about astral projecting. That's another topic that can get very lengthy. So that's the plan for next week, unless something comes up and I need to change it. So that'll be next week. And unless anybody has any questions for me, then we'll end it a little short today. All right. Thank you all for sharing and joining with me. I really appreciate it. And I look forward to doing this each week and telling you guys more and more. Also start some mini readings and such, because as I was doing this, there was a lot of spirits around me going, tell so-and-so I said hi, tell so-and-so I said hi. So I'll eventually get to one of those, and we'll do a little mini reading for what we're doing. But have a good Saturday, everybody, and I'll see you next week.